Separated by nearly 100 miles along the shores of Lake Michigan, Milwaukee and Chicago are two Midwestern cities with similar features, though the cities are on a much different scale and each has its own unique identity. Milwaukee has an old-world charm with its signature cream-colored brickwork sprinkled throughout the city, and there are signs of its brewing heritage around every corner. Chicago is a city of skyscrapers adorned with steel and glass that stretch along a park-like setting on the shores of Lake Michigan, while maintaining a downtown core centered on the Chicago River. The standard trip between these two iconic Midwestern cities involves a 95-mile car ride on the heavily trafficked I-94 expressway. The route in this video covers the distance via bike while riding along recreational paths on the shores of Lake Michigan. The bicycle ride between the heart of these two cities is 100 miles, a majority of which are on car-free paths with stretches that offer stunning views of Lake Michigan along the way. Today I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'm riding Chicago, Illinois. It's going to be nearly 100 miles straight south along Lake Michigan. It's going to be a great ride. The ride on this day began at the Fiserv Forum, home of the Milwaukee Bucks NBA basketball team. Opened in 2018, the Fiserv Forum contains a sloping wood roof that wraps the side of the building in a shape that resembles a beer barrel. The surrounding area, known as the Deer District, followed the arena's construction and is a large draw for sports fans, especially in the Bucks championship year in 2021. The ride out of the Deer District involves a pass over the Milwaukee River, whereupon the Milwaukee Riverwalk comes into view. The Riverwalk traverses both sides of the river for miles in each direction, and is home to the coolest man from the 1970s, the Bronze Fonz. The highlight of the downtown area is the Milwaukee City Hall, which sits at the triangular plot of land at Wells and Water Street. The tower of this building from 1895 stands 350 feet and is one of the best examples of the brick and stonework from the 1800s that define Milwaukee. Across the street is the Pabst Theater, which complements the City Hall nicely with its own ornate brown brickwork. Hovering above the shores of Lake Michigan is the Milwaukee Art Museum, designed by Spanish architect Santiago Calatrava and opened in 2001. It is instantly recognizable by its wing-like structure that opens and closes twice daily. This structure is one of the many additions to Milwaukee over the past 3 decades that have modernized the city, increased its connection to its waterways, and developed pedestrian-friendly features throughout. The lakefront path below the Art Museum brings the ride south through Lakeshore State Park. Opened in 1991, this 22-acre natural landscape sits between a lagoon and Lake Michigan and has a circular path that goes through prairie grasses, wildflowers, and rocky shoreline. The grounds of Festival Park can be seen when looking across the lagoon. Festival Park is most famous for hosting the Summerfest music festival since 1968. A right turn is necessary when reaching the point at which the Milwaukee River meets Lake Michigan. The 40-foot red pierhead lighthouse has stood tall at this point for over 100 years. Upon making the turn, the ride passes under the expansive Hone Memorial Bridge. This bridge is instantly recognizable with its yellow arch and 2-mile-long span. This stretch also marks the beginning portions of the Hank Aaron Trail. Opened in 2000, this trail runs from the lakefront path directly west for about 15 miles. Erie Street runs along the Milwaukee River on one side and the Summerfest grounds on the other, in an industrial setting that is becoming increasingly modernized. The Water Street Bridge is the first chance to pass over the Milwaukee River, whereupon Water Street continues south on the west side of the river. The Kenosha River Trail, or the KK River Trail for short, can be entered upon at Washington Street. This trail is short-lived and runs along railroad tracks in an industrial setting while making its way to the bridge over the Kenosha River. Along with the Milwaukee and the Menominee Rivers, these 3 rivers are the key feature that established Milwaukee as a strategic location for a city, at the convergence of 3 rivers that tie into one Great Lake. After crossing the river, follow roads east until reaching the path along Lake Michigan. The path is part of Milwaukee's extensive Oakleaf Trail, which contains a series of pedestrian paths throughout Milwaukee that total 135 miles in length. There are 12 segments that are generally connected and traverse all corners of Milwaukee County. This segment of the Oak Leaf Trail is the South Shoreline and takes the ride south through park-like settings and along the shores of Lake Michigan for over 8 miles. This stretch is one of the most enjoyable portions of the entire ride while passing through a tree-lined path, far away from roads and with constant views out onto the water. The surface is paved with some elevation changes while the Milwaukee skyline fades into the distance. The trail goes through large parks, along beaches, and past waterfront developments, eventually reaching the city of South Milwaukee. The south shore line of the Oak Leaf Trail sadly comes to an end upon reaching Grant Park. He just completed the south shore line of the Oak Leaf Trail, but what a treat. 15 miles of just meandering, paved paths right along Lake Michigan in a wooded setting. Just an A+ start to the ride from Milwaukee to Chicago. Really just makes it worth it. Once to the bottom, a road provides the opportunity to pass over the Oak Creek and proceed on a lightly traveled road through South Milwaukee and Oak Creek. The ride south through Wisconsin goes through 3 counties, Milwaukee, Racine, and Kenosha. Each is named after the biggest city within, and each lie adjacent to Lake Michigan. Each county also maintains its portion of a disconnected trail that runs north to south that is collectively referred to as the MRK Trail, each letter referencing each county in which the trail runs. The trail is not continuous and does not run along Lake Michigan. It is a mix of crushed gravel and asphalt and will appear for stretches and then switch back to road riding. Careful navigation will ensure maximizing trail usage. However, it is not mandatory to utilize all portions of the trail while heading south.
This is pretty cool. I just ran into 2 YouTubers from BBB Adventures.
Howdy!
So what are you guys doing? Where are you headed?
We're gonna ride our bikes around the Lake Michigan.
Yeah, we're calling it Loop the Lake.
All right, Loop the Lake. And they've got a YouTube channel. They've gone cross country, done RAGBRAI. So check out BBB Adventures.
The Racine County Trail can first be picked up north of downtown Racine, off of 6 Mile Road. This stretch is along railroad tracks and may be a welcome change of pace after a stretch that has been along roads with a fair amount of traffic. The setting of the Racine County Trail is somewhat unremarkable, and the crushed gravel surface is not conducive to faster riding. The trail runs west of downtown Racine and abruptly ends at Layard Avenue, northwest of downtown Racine. On this day, I decided to ride a mile east to the Racine waterfront. The Racine lakefront contains an approximately 3-mile-long paved path that runs along beaches and past homes that look out onto Lake Michigan. While the detour into Racine added about 3 miles to my ride, I enjoyed seeing the views out onto Lake Michigan and Racine Harbor. The Racine lakefront path is interrupted at the point in which the Root River meets Lake Michigan, and it is necessary to deviate from the lake in order to cross the Main Street Bridge over the river. Main Street is the principal artery of downtown Racine and is lined with brick storefronts with various shops and places to eat. A ride onto 6th Street brought me out of Racine, and after 2 miles, I was able to get back onto the Racine County Trail. Upon crossing into Kenosha County, the trail signs changed to the Kenosha County Trail. However, the overall ambience remains the same.
So I've made it into Kenosha County. The Wisconsin part, it's all about the counties. Milwaukee County, Racine County, Kenosha County, and then you're in Illinois. So they've got this paved bike trail that runs through, south of Racine and into Kenosha. And it's a nice, carefree experience just going south along this trail. So day's going okay.
The trail ends and the ride goes back to roads just north of Kenosha at 35th Street. This necessitates road riding a couple streets over on Wood Road. This road is quite wide and offers plenty of room to ride and it stretches with bike lanes. Eventually at 89th Street, the Kenosha County Trail reappears, and it is all paved trail south from that point to the Illinois-Wisconsin border. This final stretch of trail runs through the town of Pleasant Prairie and is very enjoyable. It is fully wooded and paved, which makes for some comparatively effortless riding. Eventually, the ride reaches the Illinois-Wisconsin border at the bridge over Russell Road.
Little milestone. Hit the state border. Gonna leave the paved trail of Wisconsin and enter into the crushed gravel trail in Illinois. It's a little bit of a grind for the first 10 miles in Illinois, so just going to try to put my head down and plow through it until I reach the North Shore of Chicago.
On the Illinois side, the trail becomes the Robert McClory bike path. This path runs directly south through northern Illinois towns, including Winthrop Harbor, Zion, and Waukegan.
Holy cow! I've been treated to a surprise. The Robert McClory bike path in Illinois, freshly paved. It's always been gravel. Really slow going. Right now, I feel like I'm on an electric bike.
Mileage markers appear frequently, offering regular reminders of the total distance that you have ridden into Illinois. The first 12 miles along the Robert McClory Trail has always been a crushed gravel trail. However, at the time of this ride, extensive work was being done to the northern portion of the trail, and portions were being paved in asphalt with modified street crossings at points in which the trail intersects with roads.
It was only the first mile, maybe a mile and a half, that was paved. Now it's back to the crushed gravel, which is fun. It's adventure riding. All right, mile 3. We're back to being paved. So it's a mixture. It looks like they're maybe paving this whole thing in parts. That'd be great.
This was a pleasant surprise, as this stretch has always been my least favorite stretch of the ride. The crushed gravel surface has always been slow going, and it is at a point in which both Milwaukee and Chicago are far away. The recently completed and paved portions of the Robert McClory Trail made the pedaling markedly easier, and while I had to repeatedly ride around construction zones, it appears that the northernmost miles will soon be completely paved.
So I've completed the 12 miles south of the Illinois border on the Robert McClory path. It's always kind of my least favorite part of this ride. It's square in the middle of the ride, and you feel far from Milwaukee and far from Chicago. So I'm always happy to have it over with.
After riding through North Chicago, the Robert McClory Trail runs under a busy road and past the front gates of the Great Lakes Naval Station. This naval station was established in 1918, and over 40,000 Navy recruits go through boot camp at this site on an annual basis. Beyond the naval station, the ride enters into the North Shore of Chicago, which is home to some of the most high-end suburbs in the Chicagoland area. The path along this stretch runs along Sheridan Road on one side and the Metro Union Pacific North Line on the other. This rail line runs from downtown Chicago to Kenosha with 45 stops in between. The trail runs directly past the stations in Lake Bluff and Lake Forest, two densely forested suburbs with windy streets and impressive homes that are steps away from Lake Michigan. After passing through Lake Forest, the trail reaches the front entry to Fort Sheridan at Old Elm Road. This provides an opportunity to enter into the 54-acre grounds of this former military base. The road into Fort Sheridan loops around a large field that was used as a parade ground and a site for military drills and ceremonies. Across from the open field, the road is lined with yellow brick houses that served as homes for officers and their families. The signature feature of the Fort Sheridan grounds is the 177-foot stone and brick water tower that provided water to the entire facility until the closure of the military base. The winding road exits the back of Fort Sheridan via Patton Road. This stretch passes by an open lands lakeshore preserve that is filled with native plants, walking paths, and nature viewing areas that contain sweeping views of Lake Michigan. Patton Road forms a T-intersection with Walker Road, which brings the ride out to Sheridan Road. This meandering street runs roughly parallel to Lake Michigan through the northern suburbs and into the north side of Chicago. It is lined with extravagant homes on both sides, representing a mixture of styles and time periods. One house of note is the Frank Lloyd Wright designed Willits house. This house is a quintessential Wright home and one of the many that are great examples of Prairie School architecture. As Sheridan Road runs through Highland Park, the road dips through many ravines and goes over well-appointed bridges on some of the deeper ravines. Sheridan Road will occasionally disappear and reappear. As long as you head south and turn towards the lake at T-intersections, then turn south at the next opportunity, you should find your way back to Sheridan Road eventually. The southern edge of Highland Park is at Lake Cook Road, whereupon the ride departs Lake County and enters into Cook County and the suburb of Glencoe. There are many opportunities along this stretch to exit Sheridan Road and look out onto Lake Michigan at public parks and beaches. Many of these are on high bluffs that offer dramatic views onto the water below. Beyond Glencoe, the ride goes through the affluent suburbs of Winnetka, Kenilworth, and Wilmette. These were the settings for many of the 1980 and 90s movies directed by John Hughes, including Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and Home Alone. The McAllister home from Home Alone seems to become a bigger tourist attraction with every passing year.
The Home Alone house is right off the Sheridan Road. Looks like the McAllisters are doing some work on their house. Everybody loves Home Alone.
While the Home Alone house is the most famous house in Winnetka, the biggest one is currently being built by the billionaire owner of the Phoenix Suns. The sprawling estate sits right on Lake Michigan and has an estimated price tag of nearly $80 million. When passing over Wilmette Harbor, Sheridan Road passes by the stunning Baha'i House of Worship. This house of worship was dedicated in 1953 after over 30 years of construction and is open to all people. Right beyond the Baha'i House of Worship lies the progressive suburb of Evanston. One of the first things that you will notice after entering into Evanston is the Grosse Pointe Lighthouse. This lighthouse was built in 1873 to guide ships into Chicago's port after many shipwrecks in the mid-1880s. The lighthouse is still in operation, and the building now houses a maritime museum operated by the city of Evanston. Lincoln Street provides an opportunity to turn left into Northwestern University's campus. This prestigious university is the only private school in the Big Ten, and it contains a gorgeous lakefront path on the east side of campus. The path passes by the temporary home of the football Wildcats and along a peninsula that is a truly unique feature for a college campus. The southern tip of this peninsula provides the first views of the Chicago skyline and was packed with people on this day. After passing through Evanston, the road takes on a city feel and becomes considerably congested. The Loyola University campus sits between the Red Line elevated train and Lake Michigan. Sheridan Road wraps around the campus, and it is a great opportunity to take a break from the busy roads and enjoy the well-manicured campus with impressive buildings and unparalleled views onto Lake Michigan. Upon leaving the Loyola campus, Winthrop Avenue provides a calm street with a bike path to pedal the last few blocks south before picking up the lakefront path at its northern terminus at Ardmore Avenue.
So I've made it to the northern end of the lakefront path. From here, it's a pretty easy ride into downtown Chicago, just one pathway along Lake Michigan.
The start of the lakefront path marks the end of road riding and the need for any navigation. It is about a 9-mile ride from the northern end to the downtown center. While there are no cars, the lakefront path can become wildly congested with walkers, bikers, and joggers, and care needs to be taken to stay on the portion of the trail designated for bicycle traffic. The lakefront path travels through park-like settings with all manners of recreational activity. Lake Michigan sits on one side of the path and Lakeshore Drive on the other. Beyond the open green spaces lie beaches and natural settings that act as bird sanctuaries. Harbors at Montrose Avenue and Belmont Avenue are home to thousands of gleaming white boats docked and ready for trips out onto Lake Michigan. Sidney R. Marovitz Golf Course stretches between Addison and Irving Park Road and offers striking views onto Lake Michigan on this 9-hole course with some of the longest wait times in the region. The Theater on the Lake building sits at Fullerton Avenue and is the site of concerts and special events in a beautiful lakeside setting. This is also a great place to view the Chicago skyline from a vantage point in which the John Hancock building takes on a prominent position. Beyond Fullerton Avenue begins the expansive North Avenue Beach, home to unlimited volleyball courts and anchored by a boat-themed beach house. The area around North Avenue Beach begins the most congested portions of the lakefront path as the ride enters into the near north side of the city. The path winds around what is known as the S-curve while passing by smaller yet popular beaches at Oak Street and Ohio Street. Prior to reaching the Chicago River, the lakefront path enters into the Navy Pier flyover, which was completed in 2021 after nearly a decade of construction. This newer development allows for a seamless crossing of what was formerly a congested stretch at street level that necessitated crossing a few intersections below Lakeshore Drive. While passing over the flyover, the long expanse of Navy Pier can be viewed. with its signature Ferris wheel and other amenities that are tailored for tourists. Passing around Monroe Harbor marked the end of the 9-mile ride on the lakefront path. Crossing Lakeshore Drive and entering into Millennium Park marked the end of this 100-mile ride when I came upon the Cloudgate Sculpture, an interactive tourist site that exceeds expectation and is more popularly known as The Bean. And that's a wrap. 105 miles. Milwaukee, Chicago, down the shores of Lake Michigan. Great ride. The route in this video is one segment of a mini bike tour that traveled from Chicago to Madison, then Madison to Milwaukee, and from Milwaukee to Chicago. Be sure to check out the accompanying videos that detail the ride from Chicago to Madison and the other one from Madison to Milwaukee. All great rides between great Midwestern cities. And that's a wrap. 5 days, roughly 460 miles. And I almost made it home before dark on the final day from Milwaukee to Chicago. That one was 115. Has been 115. But overall, a great 5-day tour. Until the next one.